to Statecraft IS Sociology in Newspaper series. In this series, we shall discuss the various articles in the Hindu newspaper in social perspective. Now, in today's video, in today's editorial page, there is an article saying the law of sedition is unconstitutional. Now, in this article, the author tries to explain why the law of sedition is unconstitutional, what has resulted in its origins, why is unconstitutional in the present context, and how various Supreme Court judgments held in its retention in our statute books and what various court judgments have pronounced on the issue. It also talks about recent Kedarnath judgment. Now, looking into this article in our sociological perspective, here there is a statement saying it is a most draconian law, and the author says here a federal court in Niharendu Datta Majumdar versus Emperor in 1942, in which it was held that the gist of the offense of sedition is public disorder or a reasonable apprehension of public disorder. Now, going in through the lines of these statement, we may remind of Durkheim's solidarity concept. This law is unconstitutional for sure to the present context in political perspective, but in sociological perspective, is this law in line with our present society? Let us look at. In Durkheim's solidarity concept, Durkheim talks about two types of solidarity. One is mechanical and the other is organic. In the mechanical solidarity, there is collective conscience and it is very strong. And solidarity is due to likeness or sameness. This happens mostly in primitive societies. In primitive societies, people do common jobs, acquire resources commonly, they share their resources and distribute resources among themselves on equal basis. There is primitive communism or equality existing in society. So there is no much specialization or differences between the individuals. Now, because of that likeness from one individual to the other, and because of that sameness, there is this solidarity. That kind of solidarity is mechanical solidarity. Now, in mechanical solidarity, laws are repressive and conformity to the social norms is a must. Repressive laws means these laws are penal in nature and they try to coerce upon the individual who tries to deviate from the collective conscience. That means if any individual is trying to commit a crime, the laws in mechanical solidarity are such that they try to coerce the individual and cause or inflict pain upon the individual because he has hurted the collective conscience. Now, in mechanical solidarity, minimum deviation exists because the laws are repressive and they are painful in nature. Whereas in organic solidarity, there is no strong collective conscience due to specialized division of labor. Because in organic solidarity societies, division of labor is specialized. Every individual is specialized in his own realm. No individual is same or alike to the other individual. Now, if you take your apartment also, if there are 10 flats in your apartment, you cannot find any two individuals or any two households doing same job because there is specialized division of labor in the society. Now, because of that specialized division of labor in this kind of societies, solidarity is based on differences and dependency. Because not everyone is doing the same job, individuals are highly dependent on each other. Now, for example, if I am there, if I have to go to my office, I have to be dependent on my dhobi man to get my dress ironed. I have to depend on municipal officials to lay a road for smooth transition to my office or transit to my office. I have to depend on electrician for electricity to work in my computer. I have to depend on masons, or I have to depend on cooks to cook my food. And in return, I have to depend on some public transport or auto wallahs or someone else to get to my home. All these improve solidarity in the society because there is high difference and there is high dependence in the society on one each other. In organic solidarity, laws are restitutive and are aimed at restoring status quo. These are not painful in nature. Laws are not penal in character. They are just restitutive. They are just try to bring compromise among the individuals and they just try to restore status quo. Now, relations between individuals and groups become contractual. They are not essentially natural in nature. They're contractual. Based on contracts, relations are existent in society. That means individuals knowingly or unknowingly commit to some contract, and based on that contract, they do some social actions. Now, it does not mean that in organic solidarity, collective conscience is completely absent. Collective conscience exists because if relations are dependent on contracts, the power to bind to that contracts comes from only from collective conscience, right? So collective conscience exists, but it is not very strong, no strong collective conscience. Now, if we want to differentiate between mechanical and organic solidarity, we have to look upon these things, whether there is collective conscience or not. That means whether every member of the society have same idea or not, has same idea or not, or different ideologies. Now, in our society, do you have same idea or different ideologies? Obviously different. So collective conscience is not very strong in our present society. Social factors, if you see, volume of population, if it is low, mechanical solidarity it is called. If it is high, organic solidarity. The volume of population is definitely high. Material density is nothing but density of population. This is also high. Moral density is interactions between the individuals in a society. This is also high. So all these factors are in line with organic solidarity. Moving on, differences and dependence. There are high differences and there is high dependence between the individuals or among the individuals in society. So this is again is the nature of organic solidarity. Social cohesion exists or not, it exists in society. Division of labor, simple or complex, it is obviously complex. So we are currently living in organic solidarity society. So our laws must be restitutive in nature and not repressive, because in organic solidarity, restitutive laws are its very essence. Laws must not be penal in nature or painful in character. But here, sedition, if you see, this law is penal in nature. Sedition acts upon the individual who is merely trying to dissent against the government or against the state, who is merely trying to put upon his opinion on the government. But what we are trying to do, we are trying to coerce the individual and inflict pain upon the individual by imprisonment or slashing fine upon him. This is repressive law. So we have to move from repressive laws to restitutive laws, because we are currently living in organic solidarity. So in that social perspective, also sedition is not in line with our current society. In political perspective, it is unconstitutional, fine. In social perspective also, it is sedition must be done away with. Moving on to the next article. In the editorial page, there is an article saying the reopen the files, reconsider privatization. Now, this article, this author goes heavily on the government against privatization. He explains in this article why privatization is happening, what has been done under UPA government, what is being done under the NDA government, etc. Political orientations apart, this article tries to categorize industries or state enterprises into three. That differentiation is not so relevant in our social perspective. Based on that differentiation, author tries to devise a strategy for privatization or a monetization strategy author suggests. Now, one sociological concept we can discuss here is, here the author says there are many profitable enterprises. Pragmatism instead of ideology should guide thinking about them. That means here the author tries to say that state is trying to help corporate sector or capitalist class by privatizing the key industries. Now LIC state is trying to privatize. LIC is obviously very profit making industry. There is no absolute need to privatize LIC, right? Air India also, if sufficient managerial adjustments been done, Air India can be revived and profits can be made to the government. But even then, government is trying to privatize Air India, right? Now, according to author, this kind of policy is pro-capitalist policy. In going into the lines of the author, we may remind of Karl Marx perspective. Now, in Marxist perspective, Marxists have heavily criticized Weberian bureaucracy. When Max Weber tried to eulogize bureaucracy and tried to say bureaucracy as a panacea of all the existing problems, there were many criticisms. Even Weber himself criticized his own bureaucracy. While criticizing such like that, there is a Marxist perspective where Karl Marx says state bureaucracy or political bureaucracy will inevitably represent the interest of the capital class. That is exactly what happening here. The capitalist class or state bureaucracy is trying to represent the interests of the capitalist class, and they're trying to privatize the industries, if we think in the author's perspective in particular. And here again, it is written, there are broader considerations. These enterprises provide for reservations in recruitment. With privatization, this would end and unnecessarily generate social unrest. Now, if we look into those statements in Durkheim's division of labor, there is a forced division of labor concept. In that forced division of labor, Durkheim talks about distribution of tasks and distribution of talent and will. Forced division of labor is a structural condition wherein distribution of tasks are not in proportion to the distribution of talent and will. Now, what is happening here? These employees or workers in the hitherto state enterprises have been working based on their talent and will. Now, with privatization, they will have to lose their jobs and they will have to come on to roads for their livelihood. This will create a situation wherein the task distributed to them, that means going in search of jobs again, or getting adjusted to the minimal jobs or lower level of jobs, is not in proportion to their talent and will and also experience. So that kind of situation results in inequality of opportunity, and this results in undermining of solidarity, says Durkheim. Here, author also talks the same. This results in social unrest, he says. Durkheim also says the same. It results or it undermines solidarity. So privatization, not only in economic terms, it must also be seen in social terms, because it creates social unrest and it undermines solidarity in society. Durkheim is very relevant here in this article. Moving on to the next article, in the open editorial page, there is an article talking about AIDS, how India is performing AIDS. It has tried to draw some lines between AIDS and COVID-19 pandemic and strategies adopted in both the pandemics, how states are falling short of targets, etc. Now, while discussing such things, the author says the pioneers of the AIDS movement understood that a strong political leadership, financial support, advocacy, and activism were non-negotiable in the successful handling of the movement. Now, this author says that AIDS is a movement. In social perspective, is it really a movement? Let us look at. In social perspective, social movements, ideology is central. In here also, for AIDS movement, there is an ideology that is central. That means AIDS patients need equal recognition, as AIDS is non-contiguous in nature. It is not something like COVID or some other disease which is easily spread through touching the individual. Even despite that situation, patients of AIDS are being discriminated in society. So AIDS movement tries to end the AIDS pandemic or epidemic as a whole, and it tries to bring uh, non-discrimination in place. So social AIDS movement is a social movement. For nature of social movements, collectivity with continuity to promote or resist change. Yes, AIDS movement people also, they're acting collectively in nature and they're acting continuously. It must be sustained and not sporadic. Yes, AIDS movement is sustained. It is not just sporadic. There must not be any set of rules, nor fixed structure, nor hierarchy. Yes, in AIDS movement also there are no set of rules. There is no fixed structure and there is no hierarchy. Sorry for the interruption. Yeah, pardon me for the internet connectivity problem. In AIDS movement also, there is no set of rules, there is no fixed structure, nor there is hierarchy. We never know who are the leaders in the AIDS movement and who are the followers, who are the deputies in the AIDS movement, etc. Social movements are not eternal. Yes, AIDS movement is also definitely not eternal. It comes to an end when AIDS comes to an end. Social movements occur in both liberal and authoritarian societies. Yes, wherever there is AIDS, in whichever society AIDS is present, AIDS movement is present there. Social movements are birthed with an initiating event, says Niels Melzer. Yes, AIDS movement also has an initiating event, that is AIDS being turned into an epidemic. Now, for origin of social movements, there must be an effort by a large number of people. Yes, there are a large number of people are putting their efforts, understand the problem. Yes, we understand the problem associated with AIDS patients, or we are able to empathize with AIDS patients. Problem must be observable. Yes, it is observable to the naked eyes. We can see the problem must be objective and not subjective in nature. Yes, problem is not subjective. We are not discriminating the individuals based on their personal characteristics, but because they have AIDS, that is, problem is objective in nature. There must be consciousness of the problem. Yes, those who are undergoing discrimination or those who are suffering from AIDS, there is consciousness among themselves about the problem. Hence, all conditions of social movements have been satisfied. AIDS movement is in line with the nature of social movements, and thus AIDS movement can be termed as a social movement. Here the author says there is a long-term view. We say it must be sustained. That means long-term view is in line. The other says there must be coalition of economists, scientists, doctors, researchers, technicians, civil society representatives, and policymakers. There must be multi-sector and multi-pronged strategy. There must be consolidating guidelines. All these are in line with the characteristics of social movements, right? That's why AIDS is a social movement for sure. its movement is a social movement for sure. Moving on to the next article. In this article, there is a talk about criticism by opposition leader Jairam Ramesh on the a statement given by Finance Minister the previous day. He says credit guarantee schemes have not guaranteed revival since economic downturn. There is only one way to revive our economy. We have to generate new demand, and for that to happen, we need to increase consumption. Now, this is nothing but adaptation in Talcott Parsons' perspective. Parsons, while discussing about functional prerequisites, he talks about four systems. One is economic, political, cultural, and social system. Now, economic system has one task to do in particular, that is adaptation. That means generation and acquisition of resources from outside the system to affect its distribution into the system. Now, here the opposition leader is also talking the same, that he's talking about generation of resources. We have to generate new demand, right? From new demand, new income gets generated, and it must be he also talks about distribution in the system, because with generation of new demand, new income gets raised, new profits come, new GDP rises, and that GDP must be spent again to the people. That means consumption expenditure must be increased, says the author. We need to increase consumption. That means he's talking about distribution of the already acquired resources. So here the economic system is trying to adapt itself to the present context. That means due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our economic system has fallen apart, and it is in the very nature of the economic system, according to Talcott Parsons, to adjust itself to the present situations and try to adapt. Now that adaptation is exactly what is happening here, and the opposition leader is also talking about the same. Moving on, in the next article, there is something written about mode of entry when related to promotions. Now, the Supreme Court has said that a disabled person can avail the benefit of reservation for promotion even if he or she was recruited in the regular category or developed the disability after gaining employment. Now, going through this, we may get remembered. The court also says the mode of entry in service cannot be a ground to make out a case of discriminatory promotion. We remember the concept, something promotional or giving helping hand to the disadvantaged, or promotional positive discrimination, etc. Government always tries to help the underprivileged. It always tries to support the underprivileged. Why it is needed in social perspective? Why the underprivileged needs state support? Because Karl Marx says without state support to the underprivileged are subjected to exploitation, and it results in polarization of society. Now that polarization will result in turning of class in itself to class for itself, and it results ultimately in social conflict, says Karl Marx. Hence, to avoid social conflict, state support is needed to the underprivileged, according to Karl Marx. Durkheim says without state support, inequalities that are external inequalities come into play in external inequalities come into play, and with that external inequalities, there exists frustration with society. Individuals who are subjected to external inequality. External inequality is nothing but inequalities that are the result of social structure and not necessarily because of their very true birth. And because of that frustration with society, that frustration results in undermining the solidarity in society, says Durkheim. Hence, to promote solidarity in society, state support is needed to underprivileged. Now, according to Talcott Parsons, without state support, change in the direction of flow of energy and information control take place. With that change in the direction of flow of energy and information control, social change happens. Now, to avoid that social change for negative outcome, state support is needed to underprivileged, according to Talcott Parsons. Max Weber feels that without state support, there exists dissatisfaction with his class of the individual. Now that dissatisfaction will result in strikes, protest, etc., which is ultimate result of social unrest. So to avoid social unrest, we need state support, says Max Weber. Now, in the Archimedes perspective, absence of state support is nothing but unequal emphasis to cultural goals and institutional means. That means state always has its cultural goals. Talcott Parsons also talked the same in goal attainment in agile functional prerequisites. That means state has its goals, and there are some institutional means to achieve those goals. Now, if the underprivileged are not given helping hand, or not, if they are not put equal emphasis on, that means state is giving unequal emphasis on cultural goals and institutional means. That results in state anomie, says R.K. Martin. Now, because of state anomie, different individuals try to respond to that state anomie in different ways, and that different ways are described by R.K. Martin as deviance. Now, to avoid such deviance, we need state support in R.K. Martin's perspective. Hence, that state support is exactly what is happening here. The disabled persons are giving reservations in promotions. That means state is trying to avoid social conflict. It is trying to promote solidarity. It is trying to avoid social change. It is trying to avoid social unrest and avoid deviance. All these thinkers or all these perspectives have been considered in lending or giving state support to the underprivileged. Moving on to the next article. Here, there is something about approach to population in Assam. In an interview, the CM Himanta Biswa Sharma talks that, to put it simply, if you are punishing someone for criminal activity, you must reward people for good deeds. In a society, you have to have an approach where both incentives and disincentives work together. But the approach to population should come from within the community, because any effort from outside will be interpreted on political lines. Now, reading these lines, we may get reminded of Talcott Parsons. Talcott Parsons feels that mere punishments or mere fear of punishment will not result in will not deter an individual to commit deviance or to restrict himself from deviance. It will not mere fear of punishment will not lead to society or social cohesion. For Talcott Parsons, some moral commitment must be there within the individuals to be in line with the cultural goals and institutional means. That moral commitment, because of that, Talcott Parsons terms social action as some action done consciously. That means the consciousness is the key for Talcott Parsons social action. Unlike Max Weber's social action, which results from meaning and orientation, for Talcott Parsons, consciousness must be there. That's why Parsons talks about moral commitment. He lays equal emphasis on commitment or value commitment, and also fear of punishment. Here, CM also has talked the same. Value commitment must be there within the individuals. The change should come from within the community, he says. He says both incentives and disincentives should go hand in hand. And that is what Parsons also talked about exactly. For Parsons, choice of means to reach goals is influenced by motivational orientation and value orientation. Now, this motivational orientation is something to deal with the individual. This is in micro level. Cognitive, cathectic, and evaluative orientations are run through the minds of the individuals in doing any social action. Now, this value orientation is imposed by the society. Now, the individual decides on doing some particular tasks based on based on society's perception on his actions. Their value orientation comes into place. Hence, for Talcott Parsons, both individual and society influence the individual's behavior. That is what Himanta Biswa Sharma, Chief Minister of Assam, has also talked about. Moving on to the next article here, there is something called Merit and Skill Policeman Family. This article talks about Jaish terrorists, Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists killing some policemen and family in Jammu and Kashmir in Pulwama district. This terrorism activity in our social perspective or sociological syllabus comes under revolution in politics and society unit. In revolution is nothing but a fundamental change in political power or organizational structures in short period of time. When population rises up in revolt against the authorities, that means they are trying to bring radical change. Yes, terrorists, Jaish terrorists also, they are trying to bring fundamental change in political power or organizational structures. They are trying to rise in revolt against the authorities, right? That is what we have seen. They are attacking policemen. That means they are rising against the authorities. They are trying to bring radical changes. Now, in theories of revolution, we have Karl Marx saying why revolution takes place when there are contradictions sourced from economic changes or changes in the forces of production. Now, if Karl Marx says force of production undergoes constant change with in the history when history is being evolved. Now, with that changes in the force of production, there result contradictions in the economic system. That contradictions result in revolution, says Karl Marx. For James Davis, mere contradictions in the economic system will not result in revolution. He says, with increase in economic well-being of the people, there exists improvement in livelihoods of the people. Now, with that improvement in livelihoods, aspirations of the people rise. When the aspirations of the people rise, and eventually after some time, when they realize that those aspirations are not being truly fructified, that is when there is slowdown in the improvement of actual conditions, now individuals try to revolt against the government or revolt against the authorities, says James Davis. In Charles Tilly's perspective, for revolution to happen, there must be an organization. That means there must be a definite structure, there must be a definite hierarchy, or there must be a definite set of rules guiding them, there must be some ideology. Further, there must be a mobilization. That means resources must be mobilized, plans must be charted, a plan of action must be there, their definite modus operandi must be there. They have to mobilize various sections of the population. They have to garner support from industrialists or somewhere from wherever they get money. They have to mobilize everyone else, everyone, such every people. There must be common interest. That means those who are trying to collaborate in the movement or collaborate in the revolution, common interest must be there, and must be an opportunity to act. Now, terrorists, they do not attack on the government on daily basis. They just wait for an opportunity to come, and when that opportunity comes, they utilize that opportunity to revolt against the government. Hence, this Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists also, if we discuss in Charles Tilly's perspective, there is an organization, there is a mobilization of resources, there are common interests, and there is opportunity for which they are waiting for. Hence, this can be termed as revolution in our social perspective. Moving on here, there is a picture showing students or unemployed people protesting against the government or APPSC. Now, in Andhra Pradesh, what happened is, after a long time, Andhra Pradesh government has released a job calendar. In that job calendar, when there are lakhs of vacancies pending in the government, when there are lakhs of unemployed in the government waiting for government notification to be released and get recruited into the government released only 36 jobs, both in Group 1 and Group 2 posts. That means in state civil services, there are only 36 jobs released, though there are many vacancies present in the government. Hence, the unemployed has got incensed, and they are going against the government. They are trying to agitate against the APPSC building, that means Andhra Pradesh Public Service Commission, and they are trying to uh, occupy various ministers' residences, etc. That is what is shown here. In our social perspective, in our sociology syllabus, this comes under politics and society chapter. Now, there are different types of political participation. One is political apathetics. Now, this kind of people know nothing about politics. They do not bother about what is happening in society or what is happening around them. They just live themselves and they move on. These kind of people exist largely in authoritarian societies, because in authoritarian societies, even though people try to participate in politics, their efforts will not be fructified. Authoritarian governments heavily come down on them, and they try to suppress the individual's effort. Hence, individuals may eventually turn into political apathetics. The second one is political spectators. Now, these kind of people just vote in elections, and they just try to discuss and debate about politics among their peer groups, friends, family, relatives, etc. Apart from that, they do nothing. That means they do not come out on streets and protest. They do not have any dissenting opinion to be published openly. They do not say that in public. Now, these kind of people are present largely in democratic societies. Many of them also, we are political spectators. Third kind of people are transitional activists. Now, this kind of people come out openly onto the streets, and they try to show their dissenting opinion to everyone. They come down heavily on the government. They take the help of social media or other forms of media. They take the help of various people, and they turn into activists. Now, these people also, we can say that they are traditional activists, transitional activists, sorry. Now, the other kind of people are gladiators. Now, this kind of people not only protest or not only voice their opinion against the government, they also try to participate in elections, and they take part in politics. However, these people are not gladiators. They are not trying to take part in elections or something else. They are just trying for their cause. In the protest, agitation, social movements, collective action, and revolution chapter, we have differentiation between dissent, protest, agitation, etc. Dissent is merely difference of opinion or disagreement. Now, I to have difference of opinion or disagreement against government releasing just merely 36 jobs, but I am not I am not protesting. Hence, my opinion comes under the category of dissent. Now, under the protest, the crystallization of dissenting opinion happens, open expression takes place, consciousness of injustice and deprivation takes place. Opposition is central in this protest, and reaction to an event that has already occurred. Now, we can term this as protest, right? They are reacting to an event that has already occurred. That means they are reacting to job calendar that has already been released. There is consciousness of injustice among them. Yes, unemployed youth in the state are feeling that they are being meted out to injustice. There is consciousness among them about that. They are feeling that they are being deprived. Now that is a disagreement or a dissenting opinion has been crystallized in this particular event. Hence, this can be termed as protest. Now, in agitation, intense activity takes place. Here, purpose is central. If this protests turn into intense activity, if there are widespread protests whole across the state, and they are trying for some purpose, that means get the government release more jobs. If that purpose is central, we can term that as agitation and not merely protest. That's all we have for today. We have discussed various articles in various thinkers' perspectives, and we have discussed various sociological concepts in today's newspaper. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe to Statecraft IAS. Thank you, and have a nice day.